Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of What's Your Next? I'm Stacey Riska, your lifestyle and franchise matchmaker, here to help you do what you love and love what you do. Today, our topic is reinventing your career, finding your next chapter. And our featured guest is perfect for this discussion. Today, I get a conversation with Mike Dwyer, who is the founder of implanacareer.com, who helps people, interestingly enough, find their next.
Welcome to What's Your Next. This is the go-to podcast for aspiring business owners who want to get to the next level, escape the rat race, and give their middle finger to the corporate 9-to-5. If you want financial freedom, work-life balance, and the business of your dreams, you're in the right place. Dave and Stacey Riska, husband-wife franchising duo, openly share their successes, failures, and lessons learned in franchising, business ownership, and working with your spouse.
So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Stacey, and sharing your world and audience.
Absolutely. I am excited for today's conversation because, interestingly, we both do the similar things. We both help people learn about and explore what their next might be. So I'm curious how you got into what you're doing, because I would imagine it's not something you go to college for or something you raised your hand and said, oh, this is what I want to be when I grow up. How did you come into this world?
Well, it's very gradually and incrementally. So, Stacey, I'm sure, you've had a long career. I'm sure people give you their resume and say, take a look and give me some pointers, some emphasis, whatever. Well, I had been saying 10 years, but it's probably coming up more like 15 years ago. An old client, middle manager, did that. They gave me their resume. But this time, whether it's the 500th or 1,000th, something different happened. The first thing that happened is here's a person who's well into their career. And I found myself saying, should she stretch for one last executive role? Should she consolidate and be the world's best line professional analyst because she knows the ropes so good? She's going to leave this. They're going to be doing it like she says 10 years from now. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know why that particular, maybe it's because I knew the person, it was give me permission. So I started to think about that, what could be that range? But the second thing I started doing, she was an accomplished person. I found myself saying, how we look at a mosaic. I found myself saying, if you had this skill, a couple more tiles, you'd look a little bit different. And so I come out of Ernst & Young and Deloitte. So once you have any thoughts like that, first thing you got to do is build a framework, right? How do I go about describing this and assessing it and showing people and the like? So that was the genesis, and I've been working on that for years since, Stacey.
Amazing, amazing. And so, fast forward to today, we see the headlines when you talk about how they're related to the workplace. It doesn't seem to be good news because everything is layoffs and downsizing and AI's replacing everybody and corporate burnout. I'm curious, what are you seeing and hearing in the world out there? And is this real, or what's really going on?
No, you're right. It's utterly bleak. And, as I mentioned to you before, I'm lucky enough to work with some very sharp MBAs and MS finances at a local career office, a university. And I've had really smart people spread across their cover letters across a table at our co-working space and show me how they've managed the keywords on the job search very cleverly, sent out the 120 of them, and had one or two small responses that went nowhere. Mm-hmm. So you're right. And in fact, the latest thing I'm seeing in the business press is employers complaining that candidates are using bots to embellish. So let's stay away from this whole game. I mean, basically, the candidates are saying the bots discard me, and the employers are saying you're using AI to fluff. Obviously, we got to talk to each other. If ever there was a time for networking, looking at keeping your skills current. And I think if you have a good background and some in-demand skills, by all means, keep sending in the resumes. But I don't think we can count on that anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the world has changed and we're beyond just the typical resume. But even before the resume, what gets somebody to even think about or consider what might be their next? Is it because they're bored in a job? Is it because they want more money? Like, why could or should somebody even consider looking at what their next might be?
Well, while it's a little bit of a dark reason, I think it's a bright outcome. I think it's just too scary a world. I think it's a personal responsibility at this point that every couple of years you got to be really taking a fresh look. Am I in demand? I've worked with a number of people in financial services and 45, 50 years old who tell me, wow, I made more money 10 years ago. It's so competitive now. There's so much automation in my competitors. It's just a different world. So I think, I don't think we despair. I think we get to work. I think we prepare. And I think we do our networking and we really do some brainstorming.
So,
So I think,
okay, so somebody could go out that they might have a bad day at work and I'm not coming back tomorrow. I'm going to look for something else. What are they going to, they could go out to Google, they could use AI to brainstorm. Why would somebody come to you? How do you help people find their next?
well, what we've learned is that we can guide people through what I call a kind of a core dynamic. And the first part of that dynamic is, when I look at you, Stacey, and you were mentioning all, the things you've done and all. So here's a fun thought exercise. If you were to look through some old emails and contact lists and files of projects and stuff, I hope you'll agree with me. You'd be saying to yourself, I want that sound that human beings make that goes, huh, you know, I actually did do some event planning, or it turns out I'm a pretty good meeting facilitator. And I think one of the things you're looking for is you're looking for nuggets that either, maybe, I think one of the dynamics on the table these days is there, if my job is a molecule, are there atoms that I could pursue? Are there things I could put on, there's freelance platforms now. Upwork, I've hired people off Upwork and put people on Fiverr. And this is an incredible way of putting your toe in the water. And you get to look and see what others are charging and doing and the kinds of projects. So, really, what I'm saying is the dynamic I really encourage people to do that I think you do need somebody to help you with, whether it's a couple of good friends in your personal board or in plan a career. Um, you want somebody to listen through some of the things you think are important about what you've done in the past. But then the dynamic switches from internal and retrospective to prospective and external.
Hmm.
Now we start looking out there and saying, hey, is there a market for what I want to do? And I think the other fun thing that happens when you start that process, you should add in a little bit of networking because now you might find something new altogether. And so, whether it's finding an element of something you've done enough times that you can confidently offer this as a service offering, um, then I think that's an approach. But you might decide that I want to try something on a freelance platform, or you might decide that it's time in my life. Maybe the kids are out of college now, maybe you can afford a bit of risk, or maybe you want to do something a little bolder. And I think, you're so much expertise in franchising that I don't have. But I think as people consider the range of outcomes, if you're somebody who says, I've always wanted to try something of my own,
Yeah.
I think, Stacey, this would be an absolutely fun avenue to explore because whether you want to hire, some people and start offering something on a small basis, whether you want to franchise, those are just fun brainstorming conversations to have.
I love it, Mike. And what you've made clear to me is that all of us were so much more than just a resume. And what you're doing is help people really bring out the skills and the traits that they might not even realize that they enjoy doing and that could transfer well to something else. And as you were talking, it reminded me of many of the candidates that I help get into franchising. Because look, let's face it, nobody wakes up and says, hey, I want to buy a franchise today. But many of the folks that I'm talking to are exactly what you just said. Those who have moved up through the corporate ranks, they might be in senior leadership, and they're thinking like, well, what's my next? I'm not ready to sit on the couch eating bonbons. And when they think of franchise, their initial reaction is, oh, I don't know how to own a business. None of my skills or traits transfer well. But that's actually not true. Many people in senior leadership, they have the management skills. They know how to build teams. They know how to drive revenue, whatever that skill set is. Or even on the other side, like you were talking about community and having passion. I've helped so many people get into passion-based businesses like senior care or working with children or education, because it's not always about the money for them. It's more about giving back. So, dive deeper into what your process is to get people into thinking about how they can really think about their next being so much more than just a resume.
Well, thank you, Stacey. And in a way, I would say to you that someone who wants to think about career, feel free to get in touch with and plan a career. We
Yeah.
love talking about this stuff, but I'd also like, remember in The Wizard of Oz, click the heels, there's no place like home.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a big believer in putting together a personal board. And I'd even convene them. Most of the business press, Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review, pretty routine stuff to talk about a personal board. But I've actually helped people convene a group like that. Things
Wow.
get really interesting then. Harder to schedule, a little risky because now, between them all, they know everything about you. I had somebody recently who's really big on personal boards, and they're a very strong personality. And they said, yeah. And one of them might not even know what you do, but they know you enough to know when you're timid or when you're too bold.
Yep.
Amen. So if you surround yourself with someone who knows that sector, with someone who's done the kind of business you're looking at or offering, you're thinking of putting on a freelance gig, somebody who knows you, all of a sudden that dynamic is powerful
Mhm.
because you're developing ideas, you're testing them. And so whether you turn to and plan a career, but what I'm saying is if you put a good group together, you can go pretty far. Make sense?
Yeah. I have a saying that one is the loneliest number, right? And why you never have to do things alone. So either in working with you in your career advisory services or with me through franchising, you're never alone, right? Because you have the support in a franchise, you have the support not only from corporate but from the other franchisees around you because they're doing the same thing. I would imagine with your advisory boards, it may be like a mini mastermind where you can bring something to the table and get some real outside perspective on it.
Absolutely right. And you want to be testing. And I think another key thing. Let me throw. I spent some money a few years back, my own dollars, and pursued a marketing strategy about career. And they ran focus groups. And I want to tell you what I feel is an absolutely extraordinary outcome of that. One of the things that came back from the focus groups was that if I want to get in shape, the annual New Year's Eve pledge to join the gym, I'm going to hire a trainer. But somehow, if I want to for a job or rethink my career, I'm supposed to do that solo. I'm supposed to be able to do that.
Hmm.
And I think this business of trying to be the Marlboro man, so to speak, or he or she, I think if ever there was a time for collaboration, this is it. And so I would describe Implana or the kind of personal board that I'm talking about as someone who knows you, your background overlaps with what you've done for work, and so is meaningful and trustworthy.
Yeah.
Um, then what would happen is very much for something like the specialized expertise around franchising, by all means, get in touch with Stacey. But I think For the first look, assessment, and just initial sense of things, you don't want to do that alone. You want, and I think you've got to have some networking. One of my latest big buzzes is I think we all want to refresh our skills and the like. So I have this new, I don't know, it's not that big an insight, but I like it. It's topical networking.
Hmm.
So I could go online and what in LinkedIn, Linda, or whatever it is, I could learn that, whatever. But wouldn't it be something to go to a meetup or a professional group and approach them for what I should be studying, what's emerging? Because that intersection of people and networking with goal and skills, I assert, is just so powerful. That's how you contest. This colleague of mine, Steve Dubin, that we've done networking, when I described that, he said, you should be willing to drive 100 miles to do that. And I agree with that 100%, that this would be worth an afternoon, an evening. If it's something you're really interested in, that's how to check it out.
I have found from my own personal growth, there's nothing more powerful than getting out of your comfort zone. And you're right, driving 100 miles and talking to somebody that may not know anything about you, but can kind of give you, I call it sometimes a bitch slap moment, right? Where you realize things that you may not have even realized about yourself. So it's a great strategy. And I'm so glad that you're putting that together and giving my audience a perspective that they may not have thought about, because when they're thinking of their next, they're probably thinking, oh, I'll just, do some skill assessment and Google it and AI it and put together a new resume. You've made it very clear, Mike, that it's a lot more than just that.
I think we all should have a career budget,
Mm,
and whether that's, 2 meetings a month, like Steve Dubin and I, he says it should be one a week. I say, even one a month. At the end of 6 months, you're a different person. If you've
wow.
gone to a half dozen events, and whether it's a meetup, and we put a whole thing together that's basically a shopping list of networking type. Is it classic networking, Rotary Club, Chamber of Commerce? Is it identity? If you're any kind of, whether you're ethnicity, gender, whatever, sometimes people benefit greatly from seeing professionals that are like them.
Yeah.
So I ask people to put together a little bit of a portfolio that says, okay, I'm going to do one of these classic networkings, or I'm going to do one of these skills based, or I'm going to do one of these identity based. I think women face, I don't think our society is and business is perfectly equitable. And I think it's, unfortunately, but I think it's absolutely fair and healthy to join together with people like you, however you define yourself. So imagine a recipe or a portfolio that says, I'm doing a few events every couple of months, and I'm kind of rotating through things. I'm learning some trial and error. And again, I'll assert that even if you just do one or a couple a month, at the end of several months, it's a big deal.
You've probably built some amazing relationships. You've done some internal mindset work. And my perspective is all relationships are H to H, human to human. So everybody, B to B, B to C, it's H to H, human to human. And you got to get out of that chair, get out of your office, go shake some hands and meet some people. Because as we discussed in the beginning, AI is just reading these resumes. And if you're sending out 100, chances are it's just, you're going to go into the trash pile. So you've got to find a different way to build these relationships. Can
Amen.
we kind of go ahead?
No, well, I do have Steve and I, again, because we've done these professional networking seminars. He and I have a couple sort of guidelines. First, avoid the big ask. Don't say to someone, get me a job. Don't say to somebody, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
A much better approach is, this is what I'm thinking about in the sector. What do you think? Or what should I be studying? Or what do you see as emerging in this sector? Those are flattering questions. They're not hard to answer. Another thing that Steve is very good at is never make networking transactional. It's not that I found this interesting article for you, so therefore you should. I mean, that's the death of the H to H you described. Instead, genuine interest. Stacey, I don't know a lot about franchising. How do people, how long does it take them to get started? I might, what I mean? Genuine curiosity and interest. And then at some point down the road, you can say, I'd like you to take a look at something or bounce an idea off you. And so if you keep this kind of small ask mindset and couple it with a non-transactional, just a comfortable, genuine interest, you do get to a point where you can say to someone, hey, what do you think about this? And I think that's where we want to land.
Uh, Kudos to that. Here's a great example. I would imagine as part of the groups that you're putting together, people are getting perspectives and ideas to think about things like they never thought about themselves in, or sectors or careers and such. Well, the same is true when people come to me in franchising. I'm a great example of it. You probably don't know this about me, but I've owned a Hawaiian themed coffee smoothie franchise for 19 years. I didn't wake up saying, "Oh, that's what I want to do, own one, a franchise, and two, coffees and smoothies." But my skill set translated well to it. So that's why, as you were saying, it's important that the H to H element in franchising it is too, because somebody may come in with a preconceived notion that they like or dislike a certain category or business industry, whatever it is, but they may be fine-tuned to just really connect well with a certain type of industry in franchising. And if you can think of a business, there is a franchise for it. So what happens is when people start talking to me and they're at least interested in learning about and exploring franchising, what happens is they usually end up in something completely different and something that they never even considered, but at least they were open to learning and not coming in with like a bias of I want this, I don't want this, and I'm sticking to my lane. By being open-minded, they were being able to be matched to something that made sense for them, and they're so much more successful. Are you seeing the same type of thing in your matchmaking services?
Well, I think yes, but more because people are either restless. I hate to, it sounds unpleasant, but usually it's either because people are restless or scared.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is take that and turn into a positive momentum that says, once you start doing things, you build momentum. When you've been to a couple of events, when you've done some work that says, that's right, I used to do this, or, that's somebody I should look up. That I always admired that company. These are just when you're busy about that sort of thing and you have a purpose, um, it really changes. I assert it changes the mental health of the thing. Instead of just sort of withstanding or something, if you're putting together a game plan and chatting it up and doing a little trial and error, I assert that that's just so healthy for you mentally, and that's how to get somewhere.
Well, I love how you're giving people options, right? You're not saying go down this lane, do this, do that. You're giving them options. Even as you said in the beginning, it may mean trying something new, maybe dabble in gig work or Fiverr, or just kind of dipping your toe in, so to speak. So what would you say to somebody who's watched or listened to this podcast and is thinking, I think I might want to explore my next? What would be a simple first step for them to take?
Put together a personal board and think about how much fun that would be. It can be one of the things I've learned is I've been in touch recently with someone across LinkedIn that I have always admired, a very strong and incredibly competent accountant. And I haven't been in touch with her in 25 years. And I saw she posted something and I said, that is perfect for you. I know it's been ages, but here's why I think it's perfect. And it was no trouble to rekindle that relationship. Um, and so I think, imagine the fun you'd have, Stacey, with someone if you said, is it a college professor? Is it an old mentor? Is it a youngster who's studying something, a 20 something who's getting an advanced degree in a sector you're interested in? If you can put together a bit of a diverse set of perspectives, and have some people who can advise you and test some of your ideas, I just think that's your first step.
And your second step should be to get in touch with you. So I'm sure our audience may want to share what the homework that you just gave them, and or perhaps they have additional questions. So Mike, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach out?
Well, thanks. We have the usual contact us form that actually works, and that's on implanacareer.com. And one of the things, Stacey, is good number of the time, just one call or short seminar. I'm going to start doing seminars again. A few years ago, we did some seminars, and they are so much fun. This is the way we do them. You just come with, say, 3 slides. One might be headlines from today's job market. Another might be different types of networking you do. And what you do is you get 6 or 8 people on the Zoom call. You show the slide, and each person gets 1 minute to respond. So it moves very quickly. You go right around the table, next slide. Before you know it, you've heard it from each other, you've worked together, and then usually you have a little bit of Q&A and discussion. And well, now that I know you all a little bit, what do you think of this idea type stuff? And so we're going to be redoing those. Like I was telling you earlier, a lot of time lately developing thoughtware, working with the university career office and the job shadowing and the mentoring, but those are all great things. But Implana is going to be doing some more seminars and the like again. So if people get in touch, we'll figure out how to have some fun together.
Wonderful. Well, we'll put your contact information up on the screen. I encourage you to reach out to Mike and learn more, and just think about what your next might be. So closing out today's session, Mike, I have to ask you, because the topic of today is what's your next. So Mike, what's your next?
Well, I want to grow this career sideline. I have an intern right now. I'm going to be getting a grad student. I have 5 years ago, I wrote a workbook about 60 pages, and it's time for a refresh. And what that does, Stacey, is it does Monday to Friday exactly that dynamic I described. On Monday, you're going to be retrospective. You're going to look at these old contacts and projects and stuff. And then Tuesday, you start to select and you move your way through the week. So that I want to refresh that and get it out as a small booklet by the end of the year.
Awesome. All right. Another reason to connect with Mike, because it sounds like he's going to have a great resource coming out. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your brilliance, giving us some insight and some mindset opportunities to kind of reset and think about our next. It's been a joy having you on the show. And thank you to our audience for joining us today on What's Your Next. See you next time. Bye-bye.